Welcome to Naked Spirituality, a video blog series of sacred attention therapy. My name is Rob Meager. For more information about sacred attention therapy and our video blog series, please visit our website at www.sacredattentiontherapy.com. These video blogs are intended to be spontaneous, unscripted dialogues between myself and other participants of the Sacred Attention Therapy Study Group. And we use these video blogs to dive deeper into material and discussion that emanated from the study group. And our guest today is Searle Hawkins. Leo is the author of Break Out of Your Mind and Enjoy Sublime Peace Even When the World's Going Crazy All Around You. Leo's website is www.breakoutofyourmind.com. And I'd now like to invite Leo to come on screen.
Hey.
Hello, Leo.
Hi, Robert.
Nice to be with you in this space.
Indeed.
And
Ditto.
I think I want to begin by publicly thanking you, Leo.
Okay.
Thanking you for your support of the study group, for your devoted presence in the study group, for your sharing, and for choosing to be a guinea pig of sorts with the Naked Spirituality video blog series. And it was actually a comment you had made in a previous study group that gave birth to the idea, and I'm just so pleased that you could start off this adventure with us by sharing in this space. I want to, as a polite host, ask, we just came out of a study group, and the topic was on sacred attention, and there was a few notes I made of sharing during that discussion, but before I dive into those, I wanted to politely ask, was there something that is on your mind that came out of the study group we just enjoyed that you wanted to explore further?
No.
No?
No.
Then I'll dive in.
Please do.
Okay. The topic of discussion was around a lecture from Richard Harvey called Sacred Attention. And the question was, what is worldly attention versus sacred attention? And in sharing, as a result of that question, you made the following comment. Judgment is the root of resistance to what is. Immediately preceding that, I had shared that I thought judgment was certainly fundamental to this idea of worldly attention. And then you commented, judgment is the root of resistance to what is. And I wanted to ask, what is it that we're resisting? I mean, I relate very well to this idea of judgment as the root of resistance to what is, but what is it that we're resisting?
Oh, boy. Well, that seems to get an interesting response in me, that I feel very joyful somehow just receiving that, and obviously you can see that I'm laughing. I'm not laughing at you or at the question. In some ways, perhaps that's the best response. Let me just see what comes. So I want to first of all just sort of set it up, outframe it, that the words worldly attention and sacred attention, the first time I have even come across them on the study group today. So I'm still not totally familiar with those words. And during our dialogue on the study group, partly what I was doing was trying to understand what was meant by those terms. So what are we resisting? Well, it seems that life is the way that life is. Well, what's happening right now is what's happening right now. And as soon as we go into judgment that says something else should be happening, well, something that's happening shouldn't be happening. then we're into resistance to what simply is.
Mm-hmm.
So resistance is a mental activity, a thought, a judgment that says this shouldn't be so. If I wanted to, I suppose I could say, I shouldn't be spending this time with Robert on this Skype call. Silly, because, obviously I'm enjoying it. But that would be resistance. So if I had some resistance going, they would be going, well, all right, I'm doing the Skype call with Robert, but I really shouldn't be doing it. I should be doing something else.
Right.
That's what I call resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Resistance is like the antithesis of acceptance. Of just, okay, life is what it is, just surrender, accept it for what it is.
I recognize in myself it's grounded in fear. That is, the resistance is grounded in fear.
Okay.
Fear of letting go. Fear of letting go of what I want it to be, what I think it should be, what I don't want it to be, what I don't think it should be. And I was never, and I've never been so aware of this resistance as I still, I have to openly admit, I still experience it in the context of what is still a transformation for me from the world of corporate Canada or working in a corporate environment to releasing myself from that about 6 years ago, setting myself adrift, experiencing the world in a new way. But there's still a rope tied to the mooring on the dock.
Okay.
And slowly, one by one, I'm releasing the ropes, and there's this resistance to letting the ship sail. Because there's this old...
Could I share an image that immediately came to me?
Pardon me?
Could I share an image that immediately...
Please.
I saw your boat in the dock.
Yeah.
Still tethered to the jetty or the dock by this rope.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, get a knife and cut it. Set the boat free.
Yeah. There's a wonderful teaching. There's a wonderful teaching that talks about, a large boat being tied, to the jetty, being tied to the dock.
I haven't heard that. I haven't come across that.
The boat is so large that it takes 100 ropes to secure it.
Right.
And slowly the workers start to take a rope off at a time.
Sure.
And there's 99 ropes that have been released. But until that last rope is released, the boat can't sail.
Yeah.
And I'm aware of this teaching. I'm aware of this story as I go through this transformation. And I'm still aware of the resistance to let go of it, that last rope.
Right.
To completely set myself adrift.
Sure.
It's happening, and I know it's happening, and it's an acceptance. There's compassion in it. There is some fear. There's hope. There's all kinds of emotions. There's all kinds of feelings. But I think also too, while in a worldly sense, at the root of this resistance is fear. I think at a core sense, at a spiritual sense, is this resistance to rediscovering who I really am. And this actually came up in the study group, this who am I? And I think many of us are fearful of returning to that divine state, of
Yes.
rediscovering who we are, because we've made up this story of who we think we are, and we've invested great energies into
Indeed.
detecting that story. And to give up that story can be a very frightening thing, I think, for many people.
Yes, the thought of it is frightening, yeah.
There was...
Could I share a couple of images that came
Please.
during your recounting of that lovely metaphor? I've never come across that one before, which is new, which is lovely to find a new metaphor. I've never come across that metaphor of the boat and the mooring ropes before. I like that. I'm going to pinch that one, if you don't mind. And what came to me was, this is interesting. When the last rope is cut or undone or chucked on board, what happens then? Well, only at that point is the boat free to set sail in the direction that we choose. Until that rope is released, we cannot set sail. The boat cannot move. Can I share something else?
Yeah, please do. I may come back to that. But go ahead.
Yeah, sure, please. It's just to get it out, because otherwise, it'll get lost. The thought of John Cabot, and I thought of other explorers like Drake and Amerigo Vespucci and Columbus, of course, who set sail from Europe, not knowing what the hell they were going to find. I always think, I read about those stories, and I find them inspiring. Because for all they know, the horizon really was the end of the world. And they got to the end and they'd fall off, in the flat earth way of seeing the world. But they set sail in these incredibly primitive boats in the hope that something, they were going to bump into some form of land over there somewhere. Just a shot in the dark. Huge leap of faith. Tremendous courage, I think. And John Cabot came to me because, of course, he set sail from Bristol and ended up in Newfoundland, which seemed rather relevant, given I live in Bristol and you're in Canada. And there seemed to be something there about having the courage to set sail into the unknown, as those men did those hundreds of years ago. And spiritually, we all have to, at some point, I think, just cast loose and trust. And I think the very, very first explorers who found, the New World, or the Americas as we know it today, were possibly, we could compare them to the likes of Buddha and Jesus and so on, the great masters of ancient times, who made these incredible journeys. And they came back. Some of them came back. I understand that most do not, but some came back. And they told us the stories of the lands that they had discovered, the inner realms, the kingdom of heaven, as Jesus called it, nirvana, as Buddha called it, and tried to impart a way to us that we could take the same route that they had taken, if we so choose. And so there seems to be some sort of similarity there with the earlier explorers that went across to the Americas, discovered, and some of them settled and stayed, and a few came home, and they came back to England or Europe, and they told people about this incredible new world that they'd found. Most people probably didn't believe them, because, realistically, who would? It's like, yeah, right, okay. Yeah, okay, John, yeah, you found the new world. Yeah, sure, pull the other one. But a few people listened to those early explorers, took their advice, looked at their maps, and they set sail to take the same route that they had taken. And of course, as we know now, that's how the Americas got populated. And there seems to be some, I think, a rather lovely analogy with the spiritual journey there.
I think it's a very profound analogy and a paradox that is so often present in and of the spiritual journey is we set off this courageous journey, not knowing what we're going to find, yet in the process we find the truth, and the dawning of the awareness of we always knew who we were. You know, we always knew what we were going to find when we set off on these journeys. And it's a remembering of that truth, a remembering of the journey and the awareness of what we had forgotten. I wanted to, coming back to your blessing of this analogy of the boat being moored, tied to the dock and letting go. I think it's also a metaphor and for coming back to Richard Harvey's work in this 3-stage model of human awakening, whereby in the first stage it's the journey of self-discovery, coming to know who you are. And then there is this significant gate or stage whereby you cross over into the second stage of awakening, which is the transformation into authenticity. And again, using that analogy of the boat, not until the last rope is removed from the dock can you embark on that transformation into authenticity. You know, until that time, you're still discovering who you are. But it's only when you release the moorings, when you release yourself from that and set sail, can you begin another journey back to truth, awareness of who you truly are. You wanted to share, I think, Leo.
Well, it's just what's coming is, would you say that that was analogous to what I believe the original Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama taught, that the last desire to go of all is the desire for freedom, or the desire for nirvana? Would that be the last rope?
I've heard it also described as that last rope is the desire to know God.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Freedom, nirvana.
It removes, and I'm trying to remember a recent conversation actually I had with Richard Harvey on this. He said it removes the last thorn.
Yes.
It removes the last thorn. That being the last desire, a desire in and of itself, but it removes then all others.
Yes.
There was something else that came up during the study group I want to meander into. And it's the two words, I am.
Yeah.
Because this came up a little bit, perhaps a fair amount, in the study group we just came out of. And I shared how recently, and only recently, within the past few months, I've become aware of my lack of interest, I'm paraphrasing, but my lack of interest in saying I am something.
Oh, yes.
I am an interfaith minister. I am a psychotherapist. I am a caregiver. I am and put whatever after it.
Yeah.
For example, you'll be in a social situation and someone will say, well, what do you do? I'm an interfaith minister. And I find myself catching myself now to say what I am is still in a process of discovery. But here's what I do. And delineating or making a distinction between those words that follow what I am and the activity of what I'm doing. Yeah. And a lot is written about I am. And, within the past year, I've read some Saint Germain discourses. If you're familiar with the Saint Germain discourses, in fact, there's a whole volume. There's a whole volume devoted to I am. So it's actually called the I am discourses. Okay. But I am is written about, is contained in the teachings, the ancient teachings. And I wanted to ask you, Leo, what does I am mean to you?
That just feels lovely when you say it. What does it mean to me? Well, first of all, they're only words, and truly, still the words I am lie in the realm of concept still. Mm-hmm. They're like the original concept of who I am. And the pure truth that I've been graced to know through direct perception is kind of beyond the words of I am. It's simply peace, where there are no thoughts. There is no sense of I am, or we get this kind of gilded identity of I am awareness or I am consciousness. Well, no, it's just a kind of a gilded cage, really, as opposed to the rather rusty iron cage of I am a bus driver, or I am a man, or I am a woman, or something like this. And yet the only way that I know of putting that into words, it doesn't require putting it into words, but if we're going to communicate beyond the communication of silence, then I am is the only words that I know that kind of fit. Or more better is just I, really. Mm-hmm. Just pure I consciousness, which is peace. Mm-hmm. But the paradox seems to me, and this is my perception so far, which is all I know, is that although we can say this peace is pure consciousness, which is pure I, there's no feeling of I in it. In my perception, there's no feeling of I, because if there's a feeling of I, then there's got to be another feeling of you. Whereas I don't know that it's even possible to explain unless there is the direct perception. But this feeling of sublime, inexplicable peace, which is really got, whoa. That's kind of, wow. That's how it feels to me. Mm-hmm. Is both at the same time an implicit feeling of who I am, and simultaneously there is no sense of I. You go figure. Mm-hmm. Because that sense of I is a thought. Even the concept I, the I thought. Here we go. Ramana talks about the I thought. Yeah, okay, with the I thought. And then the I thought dissolves. We focus on the I, and what happens? Well, the I thought, the original concept, dissolves, and there's simply peace. Mm-hmm. Which is our self. Which is our one self. So here we have, in reality, there is simply peace in dialogue with peace.
Well, again, I find so much of spiritual dialogue that's paradox. In that here we're talking about I am. Here we are in this space. But I can't experience I am for as long as I'm talking about it. It's only when I stop.
Sure.
I sit in silence.
Yes.
It's only in that state of silence that I experience I am.
Okay. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yeah, please.
You tell me if it's not. I don't know. This is the first time we've done this.
Yeah.
And I've had this kind of dialogue in a coaching situation. You're obviously not my coaching client. I'm not your coaching client. Yeah. And so we're in this dialogue. So we're exploring this dance together, which is lovely. The question I have which arises, which I have, the question that emerges is I am actually an experience?
This came up at a discussion group I participated in last night. More, it's a state of being, like gratitude or like love.
Yeah,
It's
nice. Yeah.
it's the difference between doing and being. So I can't do gratitude, love. I can't do I am. I can be in a state of gratitude, of I am. And by spiritual default, that will be what is extended out from me. But I can't do it. This is what
Can you experience?
This is what I find interesting to observe. And certainly I've been there, and I haven't transcended this entirely, but I think many people assume that acts of kindness, acts of love are just that, are love. They're not. There's nothing wrong with them. I don't want to be misunderstood. There's nothing wrong with acts of kindness, but that's not love. The love is what inspired the act.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the energy that inspires the act. The act, and thank goodness it exists, is merely the manifestation of the state of being. Yeah. And I think the same translates, for me anyway, and I don't have the answer for everyone. I barely have the answer for me most times. But for me, the realization that I am is a state of being, and that I can only begin to be in touch with that in silence.
Yes.
Allows me to explore it.
Absolutely. Can I share a story with you?
Oh, please.
It's how, because I think during our discussion groups, I've often mentioned this. What is this an experience? I mentioned this a few times, and this arose for me. Oh gosh, when was it? I don't know exactly. Something like about 12 years ago, perhaps, something like that, maybe 10. No, probably about 7 years ago. Anyway, what the hell is time anyway? Anyway, I was in satsang with a teacher of mine, one of my main teachers. And at the end of this particular retreat, it was several days of retreat, and at the end of it, I sat there and I was directly opposite him, very, very close. And suddenly, out of nowhere, I saw Christ consciousness flowing from his eyes. And it was so strong, it physically impacted my body, and I was pushed back into the chair, and I was just going, oh, what? This stream of consciousness, which is probably my conditioning, but I interpret it as Christ consciousness. My understanding is that it's the same as Christ consciousness. If I had an Indian upbringing, I would call it Christ consciousness. If I was a Middle Eastern upbringing, I would probably call it Allah. Right? Anyway, that was the end of that retreat. So anyway, I didn't know what had happened. Went away, but this was so powerful, actually physical impact. So I came back on the next retreat, and I went into dialogue with him, and I said to him, what is Christ consciousness? And everybody kind of laughed, I think, because they thought it was an intellectual inquiry. Anyway, he took it seriously, and they stopped laughing, because he knew what had happened, of course. And he said, well, how do you know there is such a thing called Christ consciousness? I said, because I've experienced it. I've experienced it. Glaring from your eyes, I feel it, I know it. And he guided me through a sequence of steps in the dialogue to be able to see, because what he did was challenge my words, and I said, I've experienced Christ consciousness.
Mm.
And so through a very artful sequence of steps, he challenged my perception and got me to see that actually Christ consciousness is not an experience.
Mm.
And it's taken me years for that to become even as embodied as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's by no means fully embodied. I'm absolutely not saying that this one is an embodiment of Christ consciousness, although Christ consciousness has very much been known through this one. It's still a work in progress.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
However, what has been made clear over time is the truth of his instruction and his guidance, that Christ consciousness or divine consciousness, nirvana, total freedom, whatever, pure divinity is not an experience. It's what we are.
Mm-hmm.
We are Christ consciousness. We are Krishna consciousness. We are divinity.
Mm-hmm.
We are nirvana.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If there is an experience, it implies that there is an experience that happens in someone who's experiencing it. But these beautiful states of being exist in a realm of what is called non-duality. In other words, there are not two. A realm of perfect peace, and not two is peace, as my teacher Adidar, I think, coined the phrase, not two is peace, which I think is lovely. And when there is not two, when there are not two, there cannot be an experience.
Mm.
That's taken a lot of years of inquiry to even get as far as to be able to say that to you now. It's pretty deep.
May I ask, because there was a quote, I wrote it down. I was madly writing from the study group, and you said the following, quote, all I know is that when the thought structures that give rise to the suffering of illusionary separation drop away, dissolve, vanish, dissipate, what remains is a sublime and inexplicable peace.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the story you just shared, is that an example of that peace?
Yes. As I say, it is a work in progress still here. How do you do this in English? Let's say I would just accept that it's a colloquial term of speech. I have been blessed with many unveilings of pure divine consciousness. It happened several times during this life, which is where, at those times, the pure divine consciousness is so incredibly beautiful, so awesomely powerful. There is no way that I could find to describe the awesomeness, the fantastic beauty that I've seen. And so my best guess, quite honestly, is that this feeling of peace that certainly is unveiled when the thought structures of separation drop away, eventually will become known as really nothing more than a portal, a beginning of this embodiment of pure divine consciousness, of pure Christ consciousness, Krishna consciousness in this body. I see what is currently happening, my perception of what is currently happening, of the thought structures of the illusory sense of separation, as the beginning of this truly conscious life, not the end.
Mm-hmm.
And then we come back to setting sail across the oceans, don't we? It's like, whoa, it's like, where's this going? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
but it's going to be a beautiful landing wherever the ship comes to shore, I believe.
And you know what, Leo? I think I'd like to use that energy that you just brought to us to bring this inaugural video blog to an end. The beautiful mention of it being the beginning of a portal.
Mm. Or the portal being the beginning, yeah.
The portal being the beginning. And allow us to bring this video blog session to a close and look forward to future ones as spawned from the discussion in the study groups. And I just want to thank you so much again for your support in the study group, for your planting the seed that is now germinated in the form of this video blog, and I look forward to future ones. And I'll make mention again, Leo, that your book, very interesting title, Break Out of Your Mind and Enjoy Sublime Peace Even When the World's Going Crazy All Around You. It's available through your website, www.breakoutofyourmind.com. And in the credits that will roll at the end, I'll also place an email address that if people wish to get in touch with you, they could.
Sure.
So, Leo, I will thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste. And we'll speak with you soon.
Lovely. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you for the honor of inviting me here.
Well, thank you for being with me. Bye-bye, Leo.
Bye-bye.